Hello, GCs. I have put together a video. This will be a five-part series. I'm wanting to give you some more information regarding the Algebra 1 EOC. To start in this first video, I'm going to explain the breakdown of the test and then start going over some questions from a released Algebra 1 EOC. So to start off with, to kind of go over what are you going to see on the test. For the Algebra 1 EOC, it is typically allotted for 160 minutes, but every single individual will have until the end of the school day to work on the test. So please make sure you are taking your time. Do not rush, as you have a good chunk of time to work on the test itself. For the test, you are going to be given questions based on certain benchmarks, also known as standards. So here I have for you to see the different benchmarks that are included on the test. Now, there are three big categories, and from those categories, you will see between 45 and 50 questions on the test. For your first section, we do have expressions, functions, and data analysis, and these are the listed benchmarks that fall under that reporting category. On the test, you'll see about 31 to 38% of the questions fall within this category, the same as the other two categories as well. That second reporting category is linear relationships, and that is why I'm going to emphasize a lot of the linear stuff. If we were to be on site together working, you would see me really pushing linear. And then lastly, we have non-linear relationships that expands into some other functions as well, which we will discuss as I am going through these videos and going through specific questions. The good thing for this test is you are allotted a calculator for the whole test session. So please make sure you understand how to use the given calculator. We have them on site for you. Just please ask if you have any questions, and I would love to clarify. So I'm going to go ahead and move into a released Algebra 1 EOC test. So this test was given in spring of 2024, but it is covering the same exact standards that would be on a test that you would take throughout any time frame of the year. The next major test session that we have coming up, well, they would fall under June, September, I believe, December, and then as well as in the spring. So there are multiple testing opportunities throughout the year. You would be able to sit and take this test. We will also offer the geometry EOC, which I will create a video as well, going through some release questions. We're going to go ahead and jump into this. I did want to just take this first video to explain the intro, the setup, and really starting off this test. And then you will find some other videos as well, me continuing throughout this test. So to start this first question, it states, in baseball, a pitcher's earned run average is used to measure how effective the pitcher is. The earned run average A is calculated using the formula shown, where E is the number of earned runs and N is the number of innings the pitcher pitched. It then gives us said equation, which equation correctly solves the formula for the variable E. So with this problem, and as you are going through problems, you should be reading the information given to you as it might pertain and it may help assist you in solving. Now, for this problem itself, that first paragraph given actually means nothing to us. It does not help us in any way, shape, or form with solving this problem. What's going to help us is the actual question written towards the bottom. So which correctly solves the formula for the variable E. When you are using the word solve, that means isolate. So get that specific letter completely alone. So for this problem, what I do recommend you doing is I recommend you have the equation written out. So I'm going to rewrite it. A is equal to 9E over N. And just as I said before, solving means to isolate. To help yourself organize this, I recommend you are circling what you are trying to isolate. And then where you have an equal sign, I'm going to draw a line down the middle. That is going to help you differentiate between a left side of the equation and a right side. When I am doing work to isolate, we always need to move it from one side to the next. So with solving this, we need to look to see what's on the same side as that letter that we are trying to isolate. That is that E. Well, the two items that I still have on the same side is that 9 and the N. So I need to move both of those to the other side. To move things to the other side, we do the opposite. To move to the opposite, do the opposite. Well, to start off with, we have a fraction. We need to understand that fractions mean division. So we have to ask ourselves, what's the opposite of division? Well, that will be multiplication. In Algebra 1, you don't see that X when you're talking about multiplication. You typically see that dot. So I'm going to multiply by what I have in the denominator. And just as I said before, if I need to move it to the opposite side, I need to make sure I am writing the same operation on the opposite side. So you will see that times n on both sides. On the left, a times n or n times a will not change. You cannot change those letters into numbers here. They are going to remain the same. So I'm just going to attach them together. So a, n. Now, why do we put the a first? Typically, when you are writing variables, you put it in alphabetical order. Well, clearly A comes before N in the alphabet. So when I'm writing these side by side, I'm going to put A first, then N. On the right-hand side, when I am doing that opposite operation, it is going to cancel out, meaning I'm crossing it out and I am not rewriting it on that side. We simply drop down what is remaining, so whatever we didn't touch. So I did not touch the 9, and I did not touch that E. So I am dropping those down. Just as I circled the E before, I'm going to also circle the E again in this next step, just to make sure we are looking at the same thing. In order to get that E alone, now I need to see what's left. All that is left is that 9. Again, opposite operations. So how are that 9 and that E being related to one another? Well, if they are simply side by side with no symbols, that is multiplication. Opposite of multiplication will be division. And I'm going to represent that by putting a fraction. Again, if I do it onto one side, I need to jump over the line and do it to the other side as well. So divide by 9. It will cancel on the original side. And we can ask ourselves, well, do we know what a n divided by 9 is? No, we have no idea what the value of a and n is. So we are going to just rewrite it into the next line. A n over 9. Dropping down what I didn't touch on the right, and that is simply just the e. Our goal was to isolate e. Well, is E completely alone now? Yes, it is. We can now look through our multiple choice answers to find the correct response. I have AN over 9. You will find that in option B. Now, if you are wanting to look for more problems similar to this one to get some extra practice, as I know this stuff tends to be a little bit difficult for some of us, wondering why there's so many letters in math. This is what's called literal equations. Literal equations, because you are literally just moving things around. Literal equations. Now, with the benchmarks or those standards, you can also just type those into a web browser and it should actually give you some similar related problems. I, again, can put together materials for you if you come on site and let me know. But the standard for this one is MA.912.AR.1.2. So if you were to put that into Google and search problems, that specific benchmark, you would find other literal equations as well. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next question. I'm only going to cover 5 questions in this first one just to kind of divvy up all the questions in each of the other remaining videos. Moving on. Here's our next question. It says a function is shown, and it's giving us the equation 7x plus 4y equals 14. With that given equation, this is a linear function. Now, with linear functions, there are different formats. This is called standard form. This will also be given to you on a reference sheet, just not labeled as standard form. You will see it written in a box titled linear functions as ax plus by equal to c. That is standard form. So if you've got linear stuff that I recommend you really make sure you understand because it is about a third of the test. Now with standard form, it really does not tell us anything just looking at it like the other forms will, which I'm sure I will cover as they come up in this test. But with standard form, we can use what I like to call cheats. Now these cheats are going to give us information by utilizing the A, the B, and the C. Basically using the coefficients in the given equation. Now, on the graphs that are given to us for this multiple choice, you'll notice that the points that are marked are labeled. And what's special about each of these points is that there is a 0 within them for every single one. When you have zeros involved, that means you have what's called an intercept. So an x-intercept is when you have a number comma 0, and that will be along the x-axis. So in terms of x and y, x and y. So an x-intercept will be along the x, whereas a y-intercept is the opposite, so 0 comma number, you will see on the vertical axis. Now for the equation itself and finding this information, in order to find the x-intercept, you do so by putting the c value over the a value. Now, why the a? Well, look what letter's next to the a. The x for the x-intercept. Same concept happens for the y. It's going to be c over b. Again, why is it b? Well, look what letter's next to b. The y or the y-intercept. Now to get the specific value, we take from our equation and plug in. Well, in my equation, my c value is 14. So for both of them, I can set up that c value being 14. The a value next to the x is 7. And the b value next to the y is 4. Again, you will have a calculator. So when you have these fractions, don't just guess, type them into your calculator. Fractions are division. So with that top one, 14 divided by 7 is going to be equal to 2. Now with the bottom one, 14 divided by 4, it is not a perfect number. It is a decimal. It is 3.5. Now again, I had put this set up for the points to help you. So with this x-intercept, the number you should see next to 0 is a 2. And for the y-intercept, the number next to the 0 is going to be a 3.5. We need to find the graph that matches those perfectly. So on the X, I want 2 comma 0. You'll notice it has it in A. B is at -2. So right away, I can get rid of that option. C has 3.5 comma 0, so not correct. And D has -3.5 comma 0, also incorrect. So just by knowing one of them, just the x-intercept, we can actually find our answer to be A. That is standard form. This is a linear type of question. Again, if you are wanting to search up some information for this one, the benchmark is going to be MA 0.912, AR 0.2.4. You could search it, or if you want me to help provide you some resources, I can as well. All right, moving on. All right, so this next question here, it is giving us an inequality as shown. It says, which graph represents the solution set of the inequality? So inequalities are the symbols that you see in place of an equal sign. So that is our inequality right there. The inequality itself will tell us a lot of information about our graphs, including how the line looks and the shading. So shading is that darkened area that you see on the graph. When I refer to how the line looks, I do not mean the angle of the line itself. I'm talking about how it physically appears. So with our inequalities, we have 4 different inequalities that we will see. We have greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, and less than or equal to. With this set on the left, in terms of our graph, that would appear as a dashed line. Now for this problem, we clearly do not have a dashed line, but it would appear as if you were drawing a line and you picked up your pencil every so often. Whereas the ones with the or equal to, meaning that line underneath, will be a solid line. And that's where you see your line drawn as normal. The other indicator that the inequality sign helps tell us is that shading, as I had mentioned. Now for the shading, I have a trick for this, is if it looks like an L, that means you are going to shade below the line. Now, depending how the line looks, below is where it would fall. So if it's angled up to the right, below is down and right. If it's angled up to the left, it will be down and to the left. Obviously, if it's the above, it would be that greater than sign. It's just the opposite direction. Now with our given equation, it is in standard form as we had in that previous problem. Now with inequalities, they are kind of special in which I cannot decide above versus below unless it is in what's called slope-intercept form. Use my handwriting. Slope-intercept form. Now, what is slope-intercept form? Well, that is that y equals mx plus b. This form, slope-intercept, is so important. If you're someone who struggles on this Algebra 1 EOC, you may find success on the CLT test, which utilizes the slope-intercept form of y equals mx plus b. It is very important because it plays into a lot of different processes that we need to understand in Algebra 1. So it is a really foundational skill and form that we need to understand. Well, you'll notice in slope-intercept form, the y is alone. It's isolated. So with our equation or inequality, that means we need to isolate the y to get it in that specific form to then decide above or below, which for this problem will be important because we need to know whether it fades above or below. So with my inequality, I'm going to do similar as I did to the first question we solved on this. I'm going to circle the y and I'm going to draw a line. It's not an equal sign, but it's an inequality sign that acts the same way. And I'm going to try to get it alone. We look on what's on the same side as that letter we are isolating. So that 4x plus 5. And now I need to start moving things. We move it to the opposite by doing the opposite. Well, with moving here, the numbers directly attached to the letter, those act like best friends. Best friends want to stay together until the very end. I am not going to separate them, meaning I'm going to want to move this 4x first. I do not want to separate the 4 and the x. I just want to move it as a pair. Well, to see how it's being related to the y, you'll notice that plus sign, meaning they're being added together. Well, what's the opposite of addition? Opposite of addition is going to be subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 4x. Again, have to do it to both sides. It will cancel on the original side. And I'm going to drop down what I had not touched, keeping my inequality sign the same. Now with the 10 and the 4x, those cannot combine. Now why? It's because they are not like terms. I can only add together numbers if they both share the same exact variable. 10 does not have an x, so I cannot combine them together. Now in y equals mx plus b, you'll notice the x piece comes first. So let's go ahead and write that x piece first. So the negative 4x, because it had the minus, and that 10 didn't have a sign. If it doesn't have a sign, it means it is a positive number. So plus 10. Now last step again, circle what I'm solving. I'm solving for that y. Well, how do I move a 5? Well, again, if they're swished together and attached, that means it's multiplication. Opposite would be to divide. Now it's very important when I'm dividing here on the other side, I'm going to break it down so each piece of it, so each piece that's separated by a plus or minus sign is getting that division of 5. That's going to help us with simplifying. Cancels on the original side, dropping down that y, dropping down the inequality sign, and now I see what I can simplify. Well, 4 cannot divide by 5. So I'm just going to leave that fraction as is with the x. 10 can divide by 5 using a calculator if needed. That would give us a 2. Now it is exactly in the format that we want it in. Now I could look at my inequality sign to decide above versus below. It is important here because that inequality sign can in fact change to face the other direction when I am solving based on if I am multiplying or dividing by a negative, which I don't here, so it stays the same. With this symbol, it does not look like an L. So I want to shade above. I'm going to shade above. That means with my line, depending on how it looks, I want it going up with the shading. So already, just knowing that piece, C and D are both shading below the line. We already know those are not going to be our answers. With solving this test, the best information and the best kind of trick with things, there are always two answers completely wrong, and then two you have to decide between. Typically, the two you're deciding between, one of them you would get if you made a mistake, and the other is the correct answer. So the only piece of this remaining that we really need to decide is how the line will be angled. Now, the angle of the line itself is going to come from the slope. The slope is the number, or in this case, a fraction, which is still a number, attached to the x. If your slope is positive, it is going to be going up and to the right. If it is negative, it is going to be going down and to the right. Well, for us, we have that negative, so it better look like the negative slope, which between our two options, it is going to be B. Alrighty, and for those who are wanting to look up some more information potentially about this one, the standard for this guy is going to be MA 0.912, AR 0.2.8. Inequalities, specifically graphing with linear inequalities. So this is still considered linear. So linear expands into a lot of different concepts. All right, moving on. All right, these are the final two that I am going to do. We're going to start off with 4, then I will hit 5, and then that will be it for this first video. And you can tune into the next one if you are looking to get some more practice. All right, so this says the compound inequality is shown. Which graph represents the solution set of the compound inequality? So with compound inequalities, that means you are solving two different inequalities. Now, compared to the last problem, we had x's and y's. For this one, we just have an x. Excuse my dog whine. All right, so with the fact that I just have an x, that means my goal is to solve, solution, solve, isolate. Get x alone. Now, again, I said this means there are going to be two different ones that I'm going to have to solve. So let's start off with one of them. Now, how am I going to know where they're separated? Notice that word or, that's going to separate them too. There's one on the left of or, and there's one on the right of or. Let's start with the one on the left. I have 2x minus 1 less than or equal to 3. Again, if I'm solving, I'm circling, drawing a line down the equal or the inequality sign. And then I need to start moving. Besties, meaning numbers directly attached, so that 2 are last. Move the other piece. 5 minus 1. Opposite of minus 1 is plus 1. Again, if I do it on one side, I have to go hop over the line and do it on the other. It cancels. I drop down what I didn't touch, drop down my sign, and see if I can simplify. Well, 3 plus 1, there are no letters, no variables. Those can, in fact, add. That gives me 4. Then I have the numbers that are attached. Again, if they're attached, that's multiplication. Opposite of multiplication will be division. Dividing by 2. Drop down what I didn't touch, so that x, which again, if you wanted to have it circled, you could. Drop down that sign, stays the same here, and I simplify. 4 can divide by 2. That gives us 2. Alrighty, so with this one, what does the inequality sign tell us here? Well, in comparison, very similar to solid versus dashed. If your inequality sign has no line underneath, that is going to be an open circle. Open. If it has a line underneath, that is going to be a closed circle where you're going to see it actually filled in. open, close. So with ours, there is a line underneath. That means it's going to be closed. And where am I going to see this closed circle? Well, I'm going to see it at the number that we got at the end when we solved. So at the number 2, I need to see a closed circle. Well, that means I can get rid of B and C. Again, 2 will always be completely wrong, and you should be stuck between 2 at the end. Now with this problem, I do not even need to solve the other inequality. Why? Because that inequality still is telling us another piece of information. It is also telling us the direction in which I should see shading on the number line. If your inequality is eating the number, you are going to shade to the left. If your inequality is eating the number, you are shading left. Well, obviously the opposite of that, if it's eating the variable, you're going to shade right. When you were in grade school, your teacher probably called this a little alligator your inequality sign. Whatever it looks like it's about to go munch on, so whatever it's open towards is what it's eating. So with this one, it's eating the number. I want it shaded to the left. So when I look on my number line, you'll notice it's darkened on one of the sides versus the other. Well, to the left of 2, hopefully you know our lefts and rights. Your left of 2, the only one that is shaded in that way is A. For this problem, the benchmark or the standard is MA 0.912. All of them will start with that piece of it. Point AR 0.2.6. Solving inequalities. Now, of course, if you solve the other one, you would find it be at the 6. You would find that it's an open circle, and you would find it eating the number. So it would be shaded, oops, sorry, this one would be shaded to the left if it's eating the number. For the actual answer, you would have seen it eating the letter, so eating the X, and that's what would tell you to shade to the right. All right. Last question for this video is another solving the inequality. So you can already notice how there's a decent amount of certain types of questions here. It obviously expands into different variations, but for these beginning few, it really is a lot of similar concepts and processes that we are doing. So solution, anytime I'm solving, I am isolating. So I'm isolating for X. Now with this one, you'll notice there are 2 different X's. For us, when we have 2 different X's written, that means we need to start off by getting them together, getting them to the same side. Now you have a choice of what side you would want the X on. Well, when I look at my answer choices, this beginning part here, this X in that line, ignore that. That means nothing to you. You will not have to type that in an answer. What matters for us is what comes right after that line. You'll notice the X is written first. So that means the X is on the left. So it might help us to move the X from the right to the left. Now, a concept that we are expected to know in Algebra 1 is that next to any variable, if you don't see a number, there is an invisible 1. So this is technically minus 1x. Well, we do the opposite to move it. So I'm going to make it a plus 1x. When we're moving, we cancel it out on the original side. A -3 and a +1. Please, if you struggle with negatives, use your calculator to type this in, because some of you might say this is 4. It is not 4. This is actually going to be a -2x. And then I'm going to drop down what I didn't touch. And now it has become just like the problem we did before this. Circling the X, trying to get it alone. Besties are last. I would have to move that 7. Opposite of a positive 7 is a -7. Canceling out. Dropping down. Again, using your calculator. Please, please, please use that calculator. It is your best friend for that test. A -5 and a -7 are going to give us a -12. Not a 2. -12. Now we have our besties that I need to break apart. If they're attached, that's multiplication. Opposite is division. So I'm dividing by, and I have a -2. That will cancel. I'm dropping down the X. Now here, we're like red flags. We need to notice something very important. This is a special thing that happens here at this specific spot. When we are multiplying or dividing by a negative number, we need to flip. Now, what am I flipping? I am flipping my inequality sign to face in the other direction. So it was facing to the left, but now it's going to flip because it's disgusted by that negativity and it's going to face the other direction. Then you simplify your other side as normal. A -12 and a -2. Use that calculator, please, please, please. 2 negatives will make it a +6. I'm trying to find which one matches exactly, and you will find that in option A. So just knowing that it flips immediately, that would actually eliminate 2 options. That'll eliminate B, and that would have eliminated D. It would be if you used your calculator properly to find the sign, knowing that when we have 2 negatives, it turns into a positive for multiplying and dividing, would get us the answer of A. And again, lastly, our standard, in case you're wanting to look up more info, that is MA 0.912 points AR 0.2.6. So the exact same standard as the previous question. Alrighty, so that is it for this first video. I will make a continuation moving into the next set of questions. Again, if at any point in this you are finding that you want some extra support, please message me. Let's schedule some time to work on these problems together. Otherwise, I do find that there are a lot of YouTube videos that explain some of these concepts really well. There are TikTok videos. It is everywhere. Algebra 1 is a class that needs to be taken across the nation with a state test in almost every single state in America in which you need to pass that said test. So there are plenty of review materials. We just need to make sure we have that motivation and are pushing ourselves to understand some of these concepts. Alrighty, I will see you all in the next video, hopefully.